Hello. Just waiting. I see. Oh, hi, welcome. So glad you could join me today. Um, I am going to share with you an introduction to AIM, the Accelerative Integrated Methodology. I'm sure you have very busy days if you're teachers, and so I really appreciate your spending the time in the next 45 minutes or so with me this afternoon or this evening, depending on where you are, perhaps this morning. I'm Wendy Maxwell. I'm a language teacher. I train teachers as well, and I'm the author and founder of the methodology called AIM. And you can reach me at this email if you would like to reach out to me at any time. I'd love to know a little bit more about you. So if you don't mind going to the chat and just writing perhaps what languages you teach, what or language, what grade or grades you teach, if you teach in immersion or a bilingual program, or if you're an administrator, and where are you from, where you teach. So if you could write that in the chat, that would be just wonderful. It really does help me when I'm sort of framing things in the workshop. I want to make sure I'm meeting your needs as teachers. So, and recognizing that you've come to to spend some time with me today, and I want to share things specifically related to your area of expertise. So, yeah, if you wouldn't mind writing that in the chat, that would be great. As I mentioned, I'm Wendy Maxwell, and I have created a methodology I created AIM over the course of about 10 years in my classroom and then continued to refine it over the next many years. I have written all of AIM's French, Spanish, and English resources, and which we call Histoire en Action, Jeunesse en Action, Jóvenes en Acción, Historias en Acción, and then Stories in Action in English, and then also working in conjunction with our facilitators over in Australia. We have also created the Mandarin and Japanese resources for teachers. So I have received a few awards, and I've been a keynote speaker at various places in the world, and so have really had the great pleasure of working with many teachers all over the world, French coordinators and language consultants as well. So I'm going to share with you, let's just see if there are any responses. Yeah, so Anna Maria and Magda, if you wouldn't mind just writing in the chat, even if you wouldn't mind writing what languages you teach, just so I know who is in the group. And perhaps if you teach immersion or bilingual, that would be so, so helpful. I love this quote because it really sums up why I created AIM. What counts in a classroom is not what the teacher teaches, but what the learner learns. So, of course, I started my career as an immersion teacher and then moved to teaching core French in Ontario, is what it was called, or basic French, FSL sometimes, what it's called out here in British Columbia. But basically, it's the basic French program, and I started teaching my students who were in kindergarten to grade 5, and I had students who'd had 7 years of French, and those kids in grade 5 who'd had 7 years of French, when I stepped into that core French classroom, could not understand me when I spoke in French. My immersion students in kindergarten, grade 1 were coming along, but these students, after 7 years and they had reached grade 5, could not understand me, could not speak in French, could not read well, could not write a sentence, much less a story. So I thought, oh my goodness, the teacher has worked really hard to teach, but the learners have not learned. And this was very frustrating for me because I was told to use a thematic approach and that, this was the best way to teach French in a core French environment. So I started teaching this way and the students were still not learning. So I decided I really had to do something to help my students because I couldn't continue as a teacher year after year not having students learn anything. So, and Thank you, Magda, for your information there. That's very, very helpful. And so I ended up teaching AIM over the course of 10 years. I just examined what it is that was missing and trying out different techniques and strategies, and it eventually ended up being AIM. So I'll just give you a little taste of what AIM looks like a bit in various classrooms all over the world and in different languages. Sorry, you know what? I realize that I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment because I did not click share sound properly. So my apologies. I'm going to go back, share the sound, and there we go. Okay, we'll continue.
Now,
Everyone
will
do
will
do
the song
Non, ta grand-mère. Parce que c'est la grand-mère de Chaperon Rouge et la mère parle à Chaperon Rouge. Alors c'est ta grand-mère.
la classe toma. Yo tomo.
Una persona importante. Importante o importante? Importante. Importante. Entonces, yo no hablo con tú. Okay.
Contigo.
Oh, sí.
我要找一个歌手，小鸡住在农场里，一天小鸡出上学，一个小国家在小鸡的桌上。怎么了？哎呀，天塌了，天塌了！怎么了？你去哪里？天塌了，天塌吗？
All right, so that just gave you a little bit of an overview of some aspects of a AIM classroom, a little bit of what it looks like. I love it that that the CEFR has come out through the 2000s and really talked about the importance of the development of proficiency. Because AIM is all about the development of proficiency. When my students weren't proficient, I decided to create AIM. And the CEFR talks a lot about developing this important plurilingual profile for students. CFR also talks about creating curriculum content that focuses on the can-do statements that aligns with the age, interests, and needs of the students, which is exactly what AIM does as well. Also, to develop quality resources that ensure successful language acquisition through effective teaching methods. And I do believe sincerely through the work that I've done with my students and watching what occurs in other AIM classrooms all over the world that indeed AIM is achieving this goal. And finally, to support teacher education and training for success, which is what one of our main goals is. I am constantly training teachers in various different ways and offering as many different options to teachers in terms of training as absolutely possible, because I know teachers have different family situations and travel abilities. So we really try to reflect and support those different needs. So yes, AIM and the CFR, it's a very beautiful alignment. The Accelerative Integrated Methodology, or AIM, is a comprehensible input-based approach. So everything that we are doing is there for the purpose of ensuring that students are understanding, because the faster they understand, the more they will be able to acquire the language and produce it independently. AIM also has a content and language integrated learning focus, a CLIL focus. And that is because I started out as an immersion teacher and saw the benefit of teaching another subject area or teaching a language through another subject area. So in my case, with AIM, we have a literacy and arts-based approach to the teaching of language. And of course, as I mentioned several times and will continue to mention, AIM's primary goal is to develop authentic proficiency. So where is AIM used in the world? It's used in many different areas, primarily in Canada, also in the United States and in the Netherlands and in Australia and many other parts of the world as well, to a lesser degree. So since 2004, when we first started to publish our AIM kits, although AIM actually began developing in 1993 in my classroom, from 2004, a few teachers in independent schools in Canada started to use AIM, and now it's in thousands of schools all over the world. As I mentioned, there is a large percentage of schools in Australia and the Netherlands, and I am so thrilled to say that a recent study, a longitudinal study out of the Netherlands from the Groningen University, found that students in AIM classes outperform students in the other most popular programs in the country in all language skills. And this research paper was voted the best research paper of the year in the Journal of European Second Language Association. Actually, it's association. And last October, Dutch students were rated the best in the country in the 100th percentile. So students are winning competitions in various areas. Just so happy to see that success. And if you're interested in seeing the research on AIM from the Groningen University in the Netherlands, you can copy that, get into that QR code, and you'll be provided with that research. So today I'm going to go over AIM strategies that are supported by research. AIM uses a lot of effective strategies, and this is why AIM is very effective. Just see another. Oh, Anna Maria, welcome from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. That's lovely to have you here, and also, of course, Magda from Ontario. Oh, are you from Ontario? I'm not too sure. Is yours? Anyway, welcome to both of you. I think you're both Canadian. I'm thinking that, but perhaps not. Magda, you can let me know if you wish. So today I'm going to go over the AIM strategies and why they are successful. I really love the research on AIM because it really, well, it validates, first of all, that it works, but also why it works is so interesting to me. So when I started to develop AIM, I realized my students were not able to interact in the target language effectively, most probably, I guessed, because they didn't have the vocabulary they needed. They were learning themes, which are nouns. And so, although they could say maybe chemise, chapeau, manteau, soulier, they couldn't put it together in a sentence because they didn't have enough verbs and they didn't have linking words. They didn't have question words. So the purpose of the use of what I call the pared down language or high frequency vocabulary is to allow us to simplify the language, and this allows for rapid comprehension, and the pleasant repetition of the same vocabulary allows for rapid acquisition. So what is the pared down language? Well, oh, from Washington, D.C. Oh, that's great, Magda. Great. I've seen your name. I just couldn't remember where you were from. Thank you for letting us know. Welcome. So AIM uses high frequency functional vocabulary to make sure that students have at the tip of their tongues the words that they need most. We simplify for French teachers we use the regularized stem of the verb. So instead of teaching je veux, tu veux, il veut, elle veut, nous voulons, vous voulez, ils veulent, elles veulent, which changes the stem of the verb, we just teach veut. And then we can regularize that stem and teach je veux, tu veux, il veut, elle veut, on veut, tout le monde veut, la classe veut, and I think I've got everything there. So we're keeping the veut, the third person singular form, consistent while still being able to identify with on and tout le monde and la classe, the nous and vous, without using nous and vous. Just put it to the side at first and keep it really simple. And the kids pick up the language quickly when they have that one form. or even adults as well. So now we're teaching across verbs. So we're teaching veut, va, doit, peut, aime, sait, regarde, écoute, donne, rather than teaching through verbs. So we can teach a lot more meaning by teaching in this way. And then cognates, of course, all language teachers teach cognates whenever possible because they're easy to acquire, and aim is very verb-centered, unlike a thematic approach that has a focus on nouns. We focus a lot on verbs. Yes, we teach lots of nouns, high-frequency question words, linking words, adjectives, but our core center of the Père Town language is a verb. Strategy number 2, the gesture approach. Well, you saw a little bit of that in the very first video where the teacher is gesturing and the students are speaking. This is a very unique technique. As soon as you walk into an AIM class, you can say, that does look very different. It's not the teacher who is speaking, it's the students who are speaking. And when this happens, by using the gesture approach, what we're doing excuse me, is allowing students to see, hear, say, and sometimes kinesthetically embed the vocabulary that we're teaching at the same time, which makes comprehension and recall easy. And this is because they're storing the information of that same word through visually, auditorily, by saying the word, and kinesthetically. So they're storing it in different parts of the brain, which is really great, because studies have shown that when one does this, it really sticks and therefore is easier to recall. So let's have a little look at a video here with a teacher not using AIM and then a teacher using AIM. The first one is a teacher not using AIM.
Aujourd'hui, je suis très excitée parce que la semaine prochaine, je vais visiter mon ami qui habite à Winnipeg. C'est vrai, je suis née à Winnipeg et toute ma famille habite à Winnipeg. J'ai 2 sœurs et j'ai ma maman.
Okay, so she's talking about her family, and it's all in the target language only, which is great. The kids are listening. We don't know if they understand, but they're listening. And, so there are a lot of different good elements there. Let's see it, the same teacher, who is actually an AIM teacher, using the methodology called AIM to interact with students.
Habite à Winnipeg.
Pardon?
Winnipeg.
Excellent.
Alors, je vais
Continuez.
maintenant. Est-ce que tout le monde sait ou ne sait pas que je suis né à Winnipeg? Je sais, c'est vrai, je suis né là-bas et j'ai aussi des amis que je peux visiter là-bas aussi. Et j'aime aller à Winnipeg en avion.
So you can see that there's a very language-rich opportunity for students. They know the words, obviously, because the teacher is gesturing and the students are identifying the words. The teacher is leading the students through authentic language communication. The kids are participating, they're engaged, they're focused. As I mentioned, they're obviously understanding because they're identifying the words that the teacher is gesturing, and she continues to share something about herself, which is great, all in an authentic and communicative environment. So it's a lovely opportunity for teachers to bring in not only the content of our AIM kits, but to use the methodology to help the students just talk about anything and to practice talking about anything. Because of course, when they get into their partner group activities every day, we want them to be talking about anything with their partner. So the gesture approach is what you saw there in that little demonstration. And when the teacher sandwiches, the teacher can, this is strategy 3, sandwiching, which sort of relates to, but is not exactly like Lozanoff's Suggestopedia technique, where he would use Baroque music and then teach language by having students close their eyes, and he would say, for example, maison, house, maison, car, voiture, car, if he's teaching English. And if you're teaching French, it would be maison, house, maison, for example. So we do this with AIM. So for example, if I'm teaching a word, I might do maintenant, now, maintenant, la classe commence, begins, commence. So I am sandwiching the English word. I only do it less than 1% of the time, so it's not a lot, but if I find that my gesture isn't very natural or iconic, I can always sandwich the word to get the kids quickly understanding what that gesture meant, and then move forward and contextualize using that word in other contexts so that students have a lot of practice with it. Strategy number 4 is the use of a literacy and arts-based context. And really a lot of what I do with AIM is based around David Booth's notion of going in, out, and around a story. David Booth was a mentor of mine during my undergraduate work at U of T, doing my Bachelor of Education, and then further when I did my Master of Arts degree. He was also one of my professors, and he was one of the top literacy experts in the world, along with Dorothy Heathcote, talking about the importance, or he emphasized the importance of the use of drama when teaching literacy, and also the importance of not trying to cover as many stories as possible in your literacy classes, but rather focusing on one story and delving deeply into that story. And this notion is so perfect for a second language environment, because the students not coming to the story knowing the language beforehand very well, especially at the beginning, are getting that maximum repetition with that same vocabulary. So what we do with AIM, we take it a whole step further. We focus on one story over about a 50-hour unit of instruction. This becomes a theater piece, which extends out into drama, which extends also into creative story writing. So there's the literacy piece there. We integrate that with music, as many teachers use music in language classrooms. It's so great. It does allow for a lot of repetition. And then choreography as well. So we have a very big kinesthetic component to AIM, rhythmical component, musical component. So you can see that we're really helping students who learn in different ways as well. So I love this quote from David Booth. He said, "Children new to a language find in a story context for understanding. It is not word lists that command their attention, but the lives of characters that fill the tales they read or listen to. And how painful it must be for those children alien to a language to sit day after day without feeling connected to what is happening in the classroom. And yet through storying, how quickly they enter the activity, making sense of what is happening, building their own versions, listening, telling, retelling, talking about, reflecting upon, responding." And this, we do a lot of this in AIM. And he was referring to English first language classrooms, but in a second language environment, I really feel that this is even more valuable. So let's have a look, not at a Spanish, but at a French story. This is just a very small excerpt of one of the plays that we have with AIM.
Le guépard arrive à la maison du lion. Il parle avec lui.
Monsieur Lion, qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Il ne pleut pas depuis longtemps. Tout le monde a très soif. C'est un gros problème. Est-ce que tu peux nous aider?
D'accord, Guépard. Tu dois aller à l'arbre Ungali, un arbre magique qui est loin d'ici dans la forêt. Tu dois dire le nom de l'arbre et après ça, l'arbre peut aider les animaux. Dis à l'arbre que tout le monde a soif parce qu'il n'y a pas d'eau. N'oublie pas, c'est l'arbre Ungali.
Oh, merci, Monsieur Lion. Merci. Je cours à l'arbre maintenant. Au revoir.
Le guépard arrive.
That is just one of the many, many stories that we have at different entry points. teachers can start using AIM right as young as 4 years old. We have kits for 4 to 7-year-olds. We have kits from 7, 8-year-olds. We have kits for 9, 10, 11-year-olds. We have kits for 11, 12, 13-year-olds. And we have entry-level kits for age 14, 15, 16-year-olds and adults as well. So you can enter AIM at any different age. We have resources and training for you if you are interested in getting started then. So the next strategy I'm going to talk about just briefly is patterning rhythm and rhyme. I think this is very important, and I think a lot of language teachers understand how effective that can be to draw students in. So we will do a lot of work, just even in our basic gesture reviews, even in the gestures themselves. Maintenant, fantastique, aujourd'hui, have rhythm and rhyme involved in them, and just there are just so many activities where we incorporate patterning, rhythm, and rhyme to, again, accelerate that language acquisition, but also improve engagement. And so let's just have a look at one of the really quick videos that we have. We get students up. We work a lot on opposites, les contraires. And here we have a little video that we created called La danse en action with les contraires.
Maintenant, qu'est-ce qu'on va faire? Dire et danser les contraires. Tout le monde a un partenaire. Frappe des mains et on commence. 1, 2, 3, 4. En haut, en bas. En haut, en bas. Fini. Commence, fini, commence, très mal, très bien, très mal, très bien, se rappelle, oublier, se rappelle, oublier.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, we do a lot of work, as I mentioned, with les contraires. I find that teaching one word in relation with its opposite is a very effective way to accelerate language acquisition. And we just keep raising the bar and helping students use those concepts such as les contraires in different ways. So that was one example there. Strategy number 6. AIM is very focused on the use of effective questioning in order to draw language out of the students to make sure they're speaking in complete thoughts, and later on as we move through the kits, expanding upon language production, because that is why we are able to get very, very long creative stories from the students at a very early time in their language acquisition process. So we have what I call total and partial questions. Total is simpler, partial is more challenging, but we're always trying to maximize language production, but always in a scaffolded, supported manner so that students are always successful. So we can do a little practice with some questioning techniques. So just starting with a total question, we could say, est-ce que le ciel est bleu ou noir? Or, est-ce que tout le monde est content ou triste? And then we could have a partial question, for example, quand est-ce que la classe finit? Or we could do, où est le crayon? So those are just examples of total and partial questions, which of course we explain in depth and how to use them and why they're effective and in our training. So strategy number 7, language manipulation activities. This is the most important thing that we are doing based on the story that we provide. Any teacher could just hand the kids a script to learn those stories. And by the way, the little excerpt that you saw of L'Arbre en Galie, which is an African folktale, one of our stories, AIM stories, it was just a very small excerpt. Our stories are not little stilted dialogues. Our theater pieces are actually full theater pieces that take about 10 or more minutes to perform. So they are fairly long, and we do spend 50 hours, weaving in and out around that story. But it also, the beginning stories are very repetitive. So each scene repeats, and that allows for students who are very beginners in their language learning process to be successful. So we take this story and then we help students learn to manipulate the language with increasing independence based on the content of that story. And it is incredibly effective. One could always, attempt to ask students in the class a question like, Qu'est-ce que tu veux faire cette fin de semaine? Well, if they don't have a lot of vocabulary and just barely understand the question, they're going to find it very difficult and very anxiety provoking. And that's one thing we want to reduce in a language classroom. Very anxiety provoking to try to answer the question. But if we ask, Qu'est-ce que le premier petit cochon aime faire dans la maison? Oh my goodness, they can answer it just easily. Le premier petit cochon aime jouer de la guitare dans la maison, which is part of our Les Trois Petits Cochons stories. So they can answer the questions based on the story that's familiar so easily. And eventually we do what we call riffing, where we get students to, of course, extend out to respond to questions based on themselves, but always in a scaffolded manner with comprehensible input and output. Strategy number 8 is we focus a lot on cooperative learning. We do not want students during partner group activities to be sitting in silence working on their written activities. So they are always talking, they're always interacting, they're always supporting each other. When they're practicing their play for eventual performance, they're working together as a group. And when we're working as a whole class, we're always collaborating as well and working together and supporting each other. So we always want students to develop oral language skills in tandem with written.
Oui. Il importe de mettre en salle et déchirer.
Est-ce que ça, c'est la même histoire, mais dans les mots différents? Oh oui. Dans les mots différents?
Qu'est-ce qu'on peut
Mais
faire?
est-ce que tu fais en partenaire ou
Saute.
beaucoup? Est-ce que tu fais
Et très pauvre.
Est-ce que tu fais ça?
Est-ce que c'est sans? Non, ça c'est juste une maison.
Tu fais ça?
Louis commence à marcher dans la forêt. Il espère trouver une amie dans la forêt. Elle a demandé
En train de... Oh, excellent. En train de... En 3 mots. En train de...
Après, il a triché avec un accent aigu. La petite chaperon rouge est partie le plus vite possible.
Okay, so that was just a little example of students working together, collaborating, writing, discussing, authentically communicating and developing proficiency every day, more and more and more. AIM is an immersive environment. We do not allow English at all, but we can expect that because we actually teach the students French, so they're able to use that language that they're learning. This is a really cute video of some students from Ottawa who it was a transient school, so students would come in and out, and there wasn't a lot of consistency, with exception of the fact that AIM was taught in French in their French classes. And as you can see here, a lot of rhythm, rhyme, movement, and the students are creating their own entry routine rap.
Aujourd'hui, la classe commence et tout le monde pense et danse. Quand j'entre dans la classe française, je ne parle pas en anglais. On parle en français, c'est fantastique. La Mongolie a bien appris. Je parle en français, c'est très très bien. Je fais les actions avec mes mains. En agriculture, ça c'est vrai. Mot. Word.
I just think this is so lovely to see grade 8 boys just really having fun and being so proud of what they can do in French. They created that themselves. It was all based on a model, and I do provide the entry wrap as a model that we work with in the class, and I show that you as a teacher how to model this activity in the AIM way, and then eventually students make their own. So strategies number 9 and 10. I did mention this briefly, but target language only is our goal. If I only have French 30 minutes a day or less, which is typically what I've had, my students will not develop proficiency if they're speaking in English. So it has to be French during that 30 minutes out of their entire 24-hour day. And I just insist on that. And I provide them with the skills to use target language only. And we have many systems to support, which we discuss in our workshops. We have a few really effective systems to support you to ensure target language only. Scaffolding is huge with AIM. We cannot build a house without a foundation and scaffold up from there. And so we can't build language proficiency if we're expecting students to use l'imparfait or le conditionnel du passé before they can say a sentence in the present tense. We have to make sure that they are developing proficiency as rapidly as possible. We're always building up from a foundation. Strategy number 11, comprehensible grammar. Well, we have a 3-step approach to the teaching of grammar, which is really effective. It models and sort of parallels the way a young child learns a first language, where they start to hear what sounds right first, and then they inductively generate the rule, and then we present them with the rule that patternizes the language encapsulated into one wrap. So I know that probably sounds a little bit complicated, but we start with, for example, if I demonstrate the feminine masculine, we have il, avec un moustache, and elle. And then we have everything related to masculine feminine is this and this. So we have content and contente. With the added sound, we add a gesture. We have le, la, and then we have the plural, les. We have infinitives. Je marche, je veux marcher. All infinitives end with an R somewhere. So everywhere we add this additional little visual cue, and the students have to say marcher, or voir, or comprendre, or finir, for example. We have, I won't get into all of these, but we do have gestures for the plural forms, for the past tense forms as well. And so by demonstrating these forms visually and kinesthetically, the students come to understand the language patterns before we present the rule. And then finally, we present the rule. The second step is actually practicing in a rhythmical way the language pattern, singled out from everything else. And then the third step is to present the rule. And for example, one of the rules for les infinitifs is après à comment, pour ou de, doit, aime, veut et aussi peut, c'est, vont, va ou je vais, c'est l'infinitif qu'on doit utiliser. Those are all the words in the French language that signal the infinitive form. Only useful for correcting students once they make a mistake or actually speaking or writing and they make a mistake such as je veux marche, and then you can do the rap to remind them. Okay, so here is an example of working with this.
Corrige les erreurs. Le numéro. Tout le monde lit avec madame. 1, 2, 3. Est-ce que tu peux chanter avec il? Qui voit une faute dans la phrase numéro 1? Oui.
Chante
doit être chanté parce que après peu, c'est l'infinitif.
D'accord. Tout le monde, on va répéter la règle. Et c'est la règle numéro 1. Tout le monde va connaître. Après à comment, pour ou de, doit, aime, veut et aussi peut. C'est on va, où je vais, c'est l'infinitif qu'on doit utiliser. Fantastic.
Okay, so that was that use of that rap in the context. And those are core French students, 30 minutes a day of French in Ontario. So we have a lot of testimonials from individuals. We have Gary Karkin, who is a professor teaching AIM to adults, new to the country, English. So strategy number 12, we use a lot of emotional language, which studies have shown can enhance language acquisition up to 500 times more effectively. So a lot of emotion in the drama, in the stories, in the songs, in the raps, in the gestures themselves. I don't just say fantastique, I say fantastique. I don't just say ve, I say ve with the voice, with the face, with the emotion. So that really helps. AIM's 13 strategy, hierarchical approach. If you do not have repetition in a language classroom, enough of it, the vocabulary won't be acquired. And I think this is one of the unfortunate things that happen in a thematic approach or grammar-based approach, or even in communicative approaches. The students aren't seeing the words often enough. In my thematic approach, I would teach with, clothing for a few weeks, and then we'd move on to sports, and then we'd move on to food, and then maybe on to Halloween or something. And we wouldn't visit sports or food or clothing once we left it. Well, this is not going to be effective. And it wasn't for me. So AIM's hierarchical approach ensures that we teach the high frequency vocabulary first. Then we teach more and then we review. And then we teach more and we review. And then we teach more and we go back and review. And we keep going back to review. And this is why students are able to acquire the vocabulary, even in a short time, like 30-minute class a day or less. I currently most often have been teaching for 1 hour a week. And it still works. Strategy 14, nonverbal communication and positive reinforcement. That's really important and incorporated into everything we do. The students are praising themselves when I say la classe est fantastique. When we praise one student, oh Marie, tu parles bien, for example, whatever it might be, there's very power in a lot of power in that positive reinforcement. And the studies have shown from Jane Bancroft and other studies on the importance of that positive reinforcement and positivity in a classroom for actual acquisition. Strategy 15, we limit all of our activities to 10 minutes maximum. In many cases, they're only 5 or 6 minutes long. We want to keep the brain alert, keep switching it up. We don't want to have the students sitting all the time, but they should be standing and sometimes sitting and sometimes walking. They should be only working on one type of activity for a maximum of 10 minutes. So we might do a gesture review for 5 minutes, read the story for 8 minutes, ask questions for 2 minutes. So we're constantly switching it up. That is what keeps the brain alert and maximizes language acquisition. And if you're interested in seeing all of these studies, you can use this QR code. You'll get a recorded version of this webinar, so you can pause and take it if you can't take the QR code right away. And so, yes, the supporting research studies, if you're interested in looking at them yourself or sharing it with an administrator, it's there for you. So the results are important. I can talk all I like about, how students are able to speak, but if we can't, and write it, but if I need to show you that they are, and they are successful in development of all language skills. More difficult we find typically is to develop the oral, but we develop oral in tandem with writing. So here is one of my grade 1 students, first year of core French, when I was in Toronto. After about 80 hours of instruction, she did a retelling of the story we've been working on. And in a retelling, they cannot repeat any sentence from the original story. They have to retell it in their own words. And as we move through in our literacy approach, I train or teach students how to create a better story, adding detail and what kind of detail can you add to a story. So a lot of what they learn in AIM classroom is highly transferable to their English classroom as well. So yeah, obviously a student in grade 1 who's not writing at all in English would not be writing this in French, but if they can write in English, they can write in French because we are working with the same alphabet and most of the same sounds. So we use the same approach, whether it's grade 1 or grade 11. This is Spanish grade 11. Of course, in grade 11, we're going to see a lot longer story, a lot more detailed, a lot better spelling, a lot better punctuation and grammar. So we raise our expectations in our higher level kids. Even in grade 8, in Japanese, students are starting to write. Oh, excuse me. Back down to grade 7 with L'Arbre Angeli, that story that we just saw. Again, a lot longer and more detailed than grade 1 because grade 7 students are already writing for probably 6 years in their own language. Excuse me. So, yeah, you can see it's a lot more detailed than grade 1. Now let's go back down to grade 1 and look at the next type of story that we write. We're very consistent with AIM. We always do the same type of story so that each year students become more and more familiar with the same process, but working on a different story. So in this case, the second story is called Qu'est-ce qui se passe après? What happens next? So in this case, 2 of my grade 1 students worked on Les Trois Petits Cochons. Again, 30 minutes a day of French. Après que le loup sort de Les Trois Petits Cochons, il va à la maison et dort et se réveille et marche à la blase. Et court et marche. Monsieur Loup est très fou et content. Et le loup frappe à la porte de la fille amie. Il dit à son ami, « Est-ce que tu veux danser avec moi? »« Oui, je veux, je aime toi. » L'ami dit, « Est-ce que tu veux aller à ma maison? » Le loup dit, « Oui, oui, je veux. »« Oh, le cochon est ici, dit le loup. »« J'ai peur, dit la fille amie. Court à sa maison. »« Oui, je veux aller à ma maison. Est-ce que tu veux aller à ma maison? »« Oui, je veux aller à ta maison, dit le loup. »« Je veux faire une fête, dit la fille amie. » Le loup dit, « Oui, 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 je veux. Est-ce que tu veux manger avec moi? » dit le loup. « Oui, 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 oui. » Dit la fille amie, je veux, je veux, je veux. So we see lots of repetition in there. The students are writing together. One of the students had been with me for 30 minutes a day in kindergarten, and one of the students had just started French in grade 1. Love this expression here, ça c'est délicieux. So the students this is their own creation now. It is loosely based on the original story, but they have to start their story where the story of the class ended, where the wolf falls in the soup and then he runs away. So what happens next? So anyway, they go on a little bit further. Now, we also have students read outside of the AIM kit, and we have a lot of different AIM readers, culturally related readers and other readers based on the AIM stories as extensions, summer story extensions. We even have a book publishing process, so it comes full cycle. We encourage teachers to publish the student story extensions for their own class and submit their best ones to us, and then we publish the very best and have them offered to any class to purchase. So students become full published authors and illustrators with AIM. So this is an example just of a story retelling of another story that this student in grade 8 in Missouri, a classroom that used AIM there. This is a different student from Missouri in her second year of AIM. Instead of writing Qu'est-ce qui se passe après, she wrote Qu'est-ce qui se passe avant. So in the high school kit, Veux-tu danser is the second step kit. So she wrote about 1,000 words what happened that led up to the story of the kit. And the students write together in partners, coming up with ideas, supporting each other, so no one's at a loss for ideas. All right. I'm going to show you, I'm just going to end here, almost end here. Have a look at this video and tell me from what you've seen about AIM, what do you notice? This is an AIM student, grade 5. She's had a few years of AIM, 30 minutes of French a day in Ontario.
Bonjour, comment t'appelles-tu?
Je m'appelle Saskia.
Comment ça va?
Ça va bien, merci et toi?
Ça va très bien, merci. Quel temps fait-il aujourd'hui?
Il pleut.
Est-ce que tu es un garçon ou une fille?
Je suis une fille.
Est-ce que tu aimes ou n'aimes pas chanter?
Comme ci, comme ça.
Qu'est-ce que c'est?
Ça, c'est un crayon.
Est-ce que c'est un chien ou une maison?
Ça, c'est un chien.
Est-ce que le chien court ou marche?
Le chien court.
Et est-ce que c'est un garçon ou un chat?
Il est un chat, mais peut-être le chat est un garçon.
Est-ce que le chat saute ou mange?
Le chat mange.
Qu'est-ce que tu vois ici?
Je vois un garçon qui joue de basketball.
Qu'est-ce que la fille ouvre?
La fille ouvre une porte.
Pourquoi est-ce qu'elle ouvre la porte?
Parce qu'elle rentre à la maison, mais peut-être elle va à l'école.
Qui est-ce que tu vois ici?
Je vois une fille et des parents, et les parents disent au revoir à la fille parce que la fille va à l'école.
Et où est l'école?
L'école est à Toronto parce que ça c'est l'océan.
Où est ton école? Est-ce que ton école est à Toronto, à Paris?
Mon école est à Toronto.
Comment s'appelle ton école?
Ça s'appelle Maven.
Et est-ce que ton école est grande ou petite?
Mon école est très petite.
Combien de personnes, combien d'élèves est-ce qu'il y a à ton école?
150.
Oh, très bien, tu sais combien de personnes il y a, bravo. Qu'est-ce que ta mère ou ton père dit quand tu vas à l'école?
Ma mère et mon père disent ciao ciao Mickey Mouse.
Ça, c'est très amusant. Et qu'est-ce que tu leur dis? Qu'est-ce que tu dis à tes parents?
Je dis rien.
Oh, tu ne dis rien, tu ne parles pas, tu es silencieuse. Est-ce que tu aimes ou n'aimes pas aller à l'école?
Comme ci, comme ça.
Comme ci, comme ça, je pensais que tout le monde aime l'école. Est-ce que tu aimes lire? Est-ce que tu aimes écrire les histoires?
J'aime lire et écrire les histoires.
Très bien, merci Saskia.
Et j'aime les singes aussi.
Oh oui, tu aimes les singes, oui, je me rappelle ça. Et ton singe s'appelle Ifa, n'est-ce pas?
Oui.
Et tu aimes faire des robes pour ton singe. Tu aimes coudre les robes pour ton singe.
Oui.
Merci.
De rien.
Au revoir.
Okay, so that just gives you a little bit of an idea as to where we can go with the AIM students, even in Core French. And hopefully you notice sort of that, interaction, that ability to comprehend, and her ability to describe effectively, to even enhance her descriptions, and to use vocabulary with a certain level of proficiency. Training is really important. We do offer our AIM kits, which provide everything you need to implement the methodology. Digital resources, songs, raps, dances, projectable posters, the e-reader with the story for the kit read out loud with highlighted text, and all of the videos of the gestures and the raps and the songs and the play. Everything you need is on the portal, and also in a teacher's guide with very detailed script and explanations of every single activity in all of the 85 lessons that are all laid out for you, lesson by lesson by lesson. And the partner group activities with all of the activities that the students do and that you will model, that I show you how to model in your teacher's guide. But the trainings, whether it be in person, for example, this coming weekend in Vancouver, or in Toronto on November 7th, or online with my gesture practice course and our other fall and winter and summer institutes online, or Sarasota, on November 14th. Or even our asynchronous on-demand training now, where you get that same training, but you can watch it at your leisure, on your schedule. We have all kinds of trainings for teachers who would like to implement AIM, and offered in the way that works best for each teacher. So, oh, thank you, Anna Maria. Yes, total and partial questions and complete sentence answers. That's what you saw from Saskia there in that video. Yes. So, do you have any questions? I don't know, Anna Maria, you are from, oh, yeah, Anna Maria, you're from Nova Scotia. So, we don't have an in-person training coming up in your area unless you can get down to Toronto on November 7th. But certainly the asynchronous on-demand training is just fantastic because you can review it for 6 months. You can, re-watch any aspect as you're starting to implement AIM. So and of course it is a less expensive option. You don't have to travel, and you just have exactly the same training that you would get as if you were in person. It's not the same feel, of course, but yeah. And so the asynchronous training, that's a good question. Could you just email me? I'll send you my email and I'll send you a quote for it. No obligation, of course, but I'll send over a quote. I'm so sorry, I don't have it just on hand, but and I would hate to quote something that wasn't quite correct. So when you aim, there we go. So if you wouldn't mind just emailing me, I will send that out to you. I guess it would be the French. Now, do you teach French immersion, or because we have a French immersion version for kindergarten to grade 2, and then we have a French for core. Okay, core, then that's great. Yeah. And yeah, Magda, if you're interested as well, it might be interesting for you. There's a school called E.W. Stokes in Washington, D.C. It is a bilingual school, and they use AIM extensively for French and for their French and Spanish bilingual students. So that if you would like, I could put you in touch. Now, Magda, I don't know if you teach in a bilingual program, or if you've heard of E.W. Stokes, or if you teach core basic French. But if you are interested, again, if you come up to Toronto on November 7th or go down to Sarasota on November 14th, or of course that asynchronous is always an option for you if you are interested. But I will get in touch with the two of you and give you the link to this recording. And then, of course, feel free at any time to ask me any questions. If you're very tired at the end of the day today, I'm sure, the end of your day. But if you come up with any questions, just reach out to me. You can just return the message back to me when I send out your recording. Okay, well, thank you so much. Oh, Magda, you teach at E.W. Stokes. That's why I know your name. Okay, I'm so sorry. I knew your name and I just didn't know the relationship there. That's great. Sorry about that. I should know that you teach it at E.W. Stokes. Well, great. Well, thank you for joining today. I'm so thankful to your school for its support of AIM. I'm just so thrilled. I can't thank your school enough. Renee Hayden is such a wonderful support, and I think you're lucky to have him over there. So, oh my goodness, AIM is a learning process, and it doesn't matter. You just learn as you go. You just get better and better, just like the students get better and better as they're becoming more proficient in the language. You don't reach for perfection with your students on the first day, nor with yourself. So you just do it as you can. So, okay, well, thank you very much, both of you. It's just a pleasure to have you here today, and hopefully we can keep in touch. All right, so au revoir. Merci, merci, merci beaucoup. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye. Have a nice evening. Au revoir.